Good morning. Just some housekeeping things before I begin. I wanted to introduce the investigating officer in this case. That's Detective Thomas Hernandez from the Bakersfield Police Department. He was the one who took over the investigation from the California City Police Department. He'll be here throughout the trial as the investigating officer of where the Wests live. And so that's the reason for the large TV. You'll figure it out once we get through it, but it shows kind of a view of the house. You'll see the backyard, the house itself, and the street to the front. So the television is here because it has better quality than kind of what you sense of that. You have the charges read to you in this case, essentially the murder of Orrin and Orson West by Trezell and Jacqueline West. That's the essence of the charge. And Orson West, there's your photos. Orrin to the left, Orson to the right. Their names when they were born were sincere and classic. They were adopted in the, initially they were foster children, but that is Orrin and Orson West. Their bodies have never been found, have never been found. Even with the attempts of the California City Police Department, the Bakersfield Police Department, the FBI, CHP helped, Kern County Sheriff helped as well. Their bodies have never been found. Now, they were adopted back in April of 2019. That's a photo you see up in the middle. That's actually the adoption ceremony. You can see the family of Trezell West there to the left in the yellow. That's Wanda West. She'll be testifying in this case. It's the mother of Trezell West. You also see Jacqueline Trezell, and they're holding Orrin and Orson. Ultimately, you'll hear testimony in this case that the primary source of income that the Wests had during this time was from money they received from the state due to adoption. They actually had 4 children that were adopted. Each one of those children, they got around $1,000. So the primary source of income when they were living in Cal City was the $4,000 they were receiving for adopting these children from the state of California. The names of the other children you see there, Devin, Damien, and also Adrian and Aiden. Those are the biological children of the West. This is some photos from Bakersfield. They did live in Bakersfield back prior to moving to Cal City. I can see them at the park. That's a family photo, all 6 kids. To the right, you can see them in their Halloween costume. These photos are from early 2020 and in 2019. They lived on Lotus Lane. They had an apartment there, apartment number 116. They actually all lived there, all 8 of them. And in the apartment to the other side of that same apartment building, they're in groups of 8 apartments per, was Jacqueline's mother, Maria Martinez, who will be testifying in this case as well. Sometime in May, they opened escrow on a house in California City. And then in September, that escrow closed and they began to move to California City. That is a photo of that residence that they lived at, 10717 Aspen Way. You'll see a lot of photos of that home, body-worn camera of the inside of that home. You'll hear about DNA tests of bedding from that home, of diapers from that home, but that is the home of the Wests in California City. Also to the right, you can see that is their Chevy van. You'll see that in a lot of surveillance footage. You'll see that in photos from when crime scene analysts went through the vehicle. Now the case itself, just to kind of help you understand the evidence and how it will proceed in this case, it'll start with December 21st and then move back. December 21st is the day that they reported Orrin and Orson were missing. And from there, that's when the police began their investigation, and what they learned during that investigation and talking with the kids led them to move all the way back to September of 2020. But initially, when it was first reported by Trezell and Jacqueline, was December 21st of 2020.
too dark outside. I don't, man, maybe, I don't know. I can't really tell.
When was the last time you saw that?
I was outside just looking for the lot next door, so I saw them about 20 minutes ago maybe, but they outside playing around in the yard. 3 and 4.
What color clothing were they wearing?
So, the youngest was wearing, black sweater, black sweatpants, and the oldest was wearing, black sweater, black shirt, black sweater, long sleeve sweater, and some gray sweatpants.
All right, that's the initial call that was received. It came in at 17:41 hours. That translates to 5:41 p.m. Officers were dispatched at 17:46 or 5:46 p.m. They were on scene at 17:48, which is 5:48. The officers that responded were Lieutenant Hightower, Officer Brian Hansen, Officer Anthony Cabriolas, Officer Joshua Flores from the California City Police Department. They all began to search for Orrin and Orson.
What are their names?
Orrin and Orson.
Which one's the trio?
I'm sorry, say it again.
The trio, which is his name?
The 3-year-old, he's Orson.
O-R-S-O-N?
Yes, ma'am.
And the 4-year-old?
Orrin.
O-R-O-N?
Yes, O-R-R-I-N.
R-R-I-N, okay.
So where they receive this information from Trezell, they show up on scene, they know they're looking for a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. Now, just to give a sense of kind of what we're looking at, this is in the area of the home at 10717 Aspen Avenue. The area he's speaking about playing in the backyard, you can see it here, and there is actually a fence in the upper northeast corner of that yard. And that'll become relevant as we go through this. Let me move this, I apologize. There's a fence in the upper northeast corner. That'll become relevant because that's where Trezell West is saying Orrin and Orson, a 3- and a 4-year-old, exited late that evening from a cement slab on the backyard. So police came, they began to search the home, they began to search the lot next to it, and there was no sign of Orrin and Orson. As I was saying, there is camera footage from a house to the west. This is the footage, and you're going to see a lot of it. You're going to see hours of it. But this is the footage from the house that's at 10649 Aspen Avenue. This is the West residence off to the east of the home. This is when police actually show up. That's Brian Hansen, and you can see Jacqueline and Trezell as they come to approach. So that's the police. They come, they hear what they have to say. They begin to look for Orrin and Orson. They look in the neighborhood. They look in the house. They look in the yards next door. And there was no signs of them anywhere. They got assistance from local civilians. They got assistance from the Kern County Sheriff Department Search and Rescue. To the right of that slide, you can actually see the flight path that the CHP helicopter used as it did circles in the sky, further and further away from the home, looking for Orrin and Orson all the way into the desert. And there was no sight of them. There was agencies from all over that were assisting, people all over that were assisting. They had to call CPS. This is from a CPS referral. There's so many things going on. There's even miscommunication that go on. You'll see in this, and this will be evidence in this case, that there's mention that there is video footage of the 2 children walking down the street. There's no footage of them ever walking down the street. You'll hear from officers that combed for surveillance footage. At no point was any footage found that had Orrin and Orson walking down the street. The video I just talked about, the house to the west. Again, we're going to see a lot of it. See that there is no cars that drive up, no people that walk up to that home, nobody that could come and abduct Orrin and Orson, and there is no footage showing them walking away from the home. California City Police, that when they were out there that night, they went to the neighbor. They tried to look through their surveillance footage. They went in the area looking for other people that had any camera footage. Just want to play this next portion. This is initially kind of the information they were getting from Trezell.
There? You're right there in the corner, you're back facing the back door.
Yeah, that way, yeah. No,
You're just going
not
wood
in the corner, but not
in this area.
Here, there's some wood over here, over there. I was the graphic.
Okay. So there, you're right there, you're going wood over, and when did you enter back from the fence?
Yeah, I was going in and out, in and out, in and out.
Okay. Now, the last time you came in, did you try to lock it?
No, the last time I was in to go check to see if I was moved away from the fireplace. I was supposed to start with the fireplace. So, it didn't dawn on me to close it. I did close it, like it was closed and the dogs was there. So, but when I came out, it was already open. So I'm assuming that.
Now, what's going to become important in this case is details. Things that are said and things that don't ring true based on the evidence in this case. You heard Trezell said that he left the gate open or closed it to the point where his dogs wouldn't get out. But then when he went out, the gate was open. Well, video pictures from that night, you can see when first responding officers came, the gate was actually closed. They ultimately asked Trezell, who closed the gate? He said, I didn't, Jacqueline did. They asked Jacqueline who closed the gate. She said, I didn't, he did. And again, they're starting to see inconsistencies in what they're saying, what Trezell is saying, what Jacqueline is saying. You'll see that in the evidence in this case. They also look at the gate itself because he said he closed it enough to where his dogs couldn't get out. But when he came out, it was open. So they tested that gate to see how hard it was to open.
I'm going to start now. Go ahead, recording.
Again, these are 3- and 4-year-old that are supposedly opening the gate. You just saw that it took a grown man some effort to even open. So again, they're noting inconsistencies in what Trezell is saying, in what Jacqueline is saying to them. On the cement slab, there was drawing with some chalk. They did see chalk on a cement slab, but Officer Hansen also noted that there was no children's footprints, anything consistent with children's footprints in the dirt. He did see footprints consistent with an adult, but nothing consistent with a child walking through the dirt that was between the cement slab and the gate that led out to the field. This is just a kind of overview of the surveillance footage that they either viewed that night or were able to recover in the following days. Jesse Dobbins, he will be testifying in this case. He lives across the street at the time. He had a Nest camera on the front of his house. He didn't have the full service with Nest, but he had a camera. And that camera caught some activations that night. And this will become important as it relates to the timing of it. There was an activation at 5:12, at 5:38, and at 5:51. Now, Mr. Dobbins, like I said, lives directly across the street from the West residence. And so his Nest camera looks out across the street, somewhat to the yard to the right, but a lot of the house of the West. You will see based on the surveillance footage that 5:12 is consistent with the time that Trezell was out getting wood from the yard next to it. 5:38 is consistent with the time frame of when Trezell returned from searching for the kids. 5:51 is consistent when law enforcement arrived on scene. There is no activation for any other movement based on what Jesse Dobbins will testify to. The house that is to the west, again, this is 10649. Put a circle around it, but this is that evening. You'll have to do math when we go through it, but it's 57 minutes slow. So this is at approximately 5:09. And you'll see this up in the corner. This is the area with the fence. I'll use that area. you can see an individual pulling items in and out of the yard through the fence. So Trezell West was outside pulling wood in and out through the fence. At some time around 16:20 hours or 5:17 p.m. in real time, that's the last time when Trezell went into the house. That's the time frame he said that he last saw the children. When he returned a short time later, they were gone. That's where you're going to hear Mr. West say in this case. For approximately 10 minutes in the home, you will see that he enters his van and begins to drive around the area. At about 6 minutes later, he returns from driving, goes in the house, and that's when the call is made that you heard earlier. There's also footage from a neighbor that lived to the northeast area on Rome Beauty Drive. Mr. Robert Avalar, he will be testifying in this case. That's footage from his home. It looks out towards the desert area, which is near the end of Aspen Avenue. He said that evening, you can see a picture of him to the left. This is Mr. Avalar here. He was outside. He did not see any children walking into the desert. There's also footage that was recovered from 108th Street. It's a white rectangle where showing the coverage of a Ring camera. That's Mr. Trezell West's van driving around the neighborhood. Now again, it's the inconsistencies which lead the officers to investigate, which keeps them talking to Jacqueline and Trezell West. They search the backyard. This is another look of the backyard facing the home. And based on some statements by Jacqueline, they actually take a cadaver dog out into the backyard. And you can see the dog there, that's Sadie. She does note that there is something there, but what her handler says is it was confused interest. But nonetheless, based on what Jacqueline said to them, a cadaver dog was taken out there and had some notification based on what that dog smelled. Now the FBI went through that yard, went through the dirt, dug, all those things. No bones were ever found, no body parts were ever found, but the dog did alert or have confused interest at that location. Now what truly began the investigation, you'll hear this through Officer Hansen and also the other 4 children of Jacqueline and Trezell. When they were spoken to the early morning hours of December 22nd, 2020, it's what they said that led to the investigation. To your left, that's Adrian. That's the oldest biological son of Jacqueline and Trezell. He was 10 at the time. He was asked specifically about December 19th, because that's when they had gone to Wanda West's house, the grandmother's house. They were not home the evening that Jacqueline and Trezell reported Orrin and Orson missing. They were actually in Bakersfield visiting family members. So they were asked, were Orrin and Orson with you when you came to Wanda West's house in Bakersfield December 19th? Adrian said no. He was interviewed multiple times. You'll hear this through a Sonia Barton and also Adrian, that his mother had told him that Orson and Orrin were over at his grandmother's, or Maria Martinez. He told them that Orrin and Orson had left before September, that they went to grandmother's house a couple days after we moved to California City. So again, they're getting a sense of not only were they not in the van on December 19th, that they hadn't been in the home in California City also. To the right, that is Aiden, another biological son of Jacqueline and Trezell. He was asked who was in the car on the trip to Bakersfield December 19th. He said his brothers. And you'll hear evidence when that was clarified. By brothers, who do you mean? Devin, Damian, and Adrian. Again, this is Aiden stating that Orrin and Orson were not in the vehicle on that trip December 19th. He was asked why Orrin and Orson didn't move to the house. And evidence will show in this case, he said because they cry a lot. And that his mom and dad said they went to the place where they used to live. Again, the investigators are hearing this from not just 1, but 2 children now. That they were not in the home in California City and that they had been taken somewhere else. Moving on to Damian and Devin. Damien, very young at the time, but he was asked, did they move to the house? He said yes, but then they left. They were there only a little day, only one day. So again, Orrin and Orson were at California City, but only for one day, and then they were gone. So at this point, there's 3 children of Jacqueline and Trezell saying that Orrin and Orson were at California City only for a short period of time, or not at all. Moving on to Devin. He was asked, when's the last time he saw Orrin and Orson? He said at the apartment. Again, the apartment's in Bakersfield, not in California City. Asked if Orrin had gone somewhere else, he said, Orrin went somewhere else. He went to mom's grandma. So again, 4 children of Jacqueline and Trezell, all 4 said that they were not with them when they went December 19th, and they hadn't even been with them in California City. This is a Facebook post that you will see related to Jacqueline West. This is the day after, I'll go back, the day after these interviews of the 4 boys. The next day, or that same day, they were informed essentially what Adrian, Aiden, Devin, and Damien had said. And this is a message that she sent to Wanda West, who had contact with the boys. Jacqueline said, please tell them we love them and miss them. And she also said, the boys need to ask for a lawyer if they want to talk to them again. I don't want them twisting whatever they are saying. So the officers take that information September 19th. They began to look through the footage. They began to look at that van to see, can we see if any kids are getting in? Can we see if 4 are getting in? Can we see if 6 are getting in? What can we see? That's footage, kind of a screenshot of the footage from the home. You can see on December 19th at 11:35 plus 57 minutes, that's when people enter that van and drive to Bakersfield. Ultimately, the question will be up for you as jurors, how many children entered that van that day. Return time, 15:44 or 3:44 plus 57 minutes. Again, that's the return of Jacqueline and Trezell to the home that day. The total trip time was 5 hours and 9 minutes. Now, you'll hear testimony about that trip, where they went. They went to a home on Potomac, 1109 Potomac. That's Wanda and Philip West's home. And from there, they went to Strata Credit Union, which is on Truxton and South H Street. They then took Wanda home because she had gone with them to Strata. They went to a gas station and to Superior Grocers before they went home. So that's just kind of a list of all the places they went. At none of those places, on any of the surveillance footage, were Orrin and Orson ever seen. You'll hear from Wanda. She'll say she didn't hear the kids in the car. She didn't see them. She didn't necessarily look for them, but she didn't see them in the car. So Wanda West, who got in at the home at 1109 Potomac, all the way to Strata Credit Union, all the way back, at no point being in the car did she hear Orrin, did she hear Orson, or did she see any evidence of them in the car. This is that van. I circled it going to Strata Credit Union, again, Truxton and South H. This is Jacqueline and Trezell at the Gasco. That's at East California and Mount Vernon. Again, no sign of the children. December 19th, this is Superior Grocers. That's on Union and East California. I circled that Chevy van. It's quite recognizable, the van itself. We'll watch the video from that. It's there for about 20 minutes. At no point does Orrin and Orson ever exit that van, or are they seen? Now moving forward to December 28th. At that point, the oldest son of Jacqueline and Trezell is re-interviewed by Sonia Barton. Who is Sonia Barton? She works for CPS. She's not a law enforcement officer. She interviews children. That's what she does. But on that date, she speaks to Adrian. That's a screenshot of him there sitting on the couch, December 28th of 2020. On that date, he told Sonia Barton that while they were still living at the apartment in Bakersfield, he heard noises in the night coming from Orrin. The first person to find Orrin in the morning was his parents. What he saw was Orrin. His color was fading. There was throw up coming out of his nose, and ultimately he died at the apartment there on in Lotus Lane in Bakersfield. He told Sonia Barton, and also later in his testimony, that Trezell and Jacqueline did not call for any medical care for Orrin. Trezell went to grab something that looked like some form of medical device, maybe a stethoscope, but ultimately they didn't discuss getting medical care for Orrin. They let him die. What they did is they discussed keeping it a secret. Adrian, both in his interview and ultimately in later testimony, they asked him, that being Jacqueline and Trezell, if they should tell somebody or keep it a secret. And what you'll hear testimony is, through Adrian, is that he knew if they told somebody, they would be taken away from their parents. Now, as for Orson, again, this is based on what you'll hear in evidence in this case on Adrian's prior statement and testimony. Orson was in California City for about 4 days. At some point, Adrian heard a loud thud in the night. The day prior to hearing the thud, Orson was there. The day after the loud thud, Orson was gone, and he hasn't seen him since. He believed that Orson was taken back to his grandma's. Now again, the time frame of that interview with Sonia Barton, that's December 28th. This is a call that was heard between Jacqueline, Trezell, and Adrian about 1 week later.
We're trying really, really hard to get their back. We really are. But some things were said, and we just got to prove to them that it's not true, you know? And Liz, I just want you to know, you don't have to talk to anybody if you don't want to, okay? I don't want nobody to tell you what to say, nothing like that. You don't have to talk to nobody. I know they've been asking you a lot of questions, but if you don't want to talk to them, you don't have to, baby. Okay.
And as I said before, those 4 boys will be coming in to testify in this case. But that's their mother, Adrian's mother, about 1 week after he told them, the police, what had happened at the apartment in Bakersfield, trying to get him not to talk. Now, again, based on the information that they received, the officers began to go back and see if they can interview anyone that did see Orrin or Orson. They talked to the realtor, Robert Dees. He had gone out there prior to the West moving. He remembers seeing 5 children. He also specifically remembers 4 boys playing, and 1 boy was mad, kind of with his arms crossed. He ultimately identified Orson as being there, but he only saw 5 children at California City. Now, the pest control individual, Joseph Karsham, he recalled 6 to 7 when he went in the home September 15th, but ultimately when they went out to the Chevy van, because he wanted to spray the house, he saw 3 to 4 children walking out and 1 being carried out. Again, the math on that is 5 children. Maria Martinez, she was asked about whether or not she had seen Orrin and Orson from the date of moving to December 21st. When she was first interviewed, she didn't even know the names of Orrin and Orson. She said that she did not watch Orrin or Orson from September forward. And also, she told them about the time that she had visited October 10th and also some video calls. But when she was pressed on it, she ultimately says, I think they were there. I believe they were there. I can't be 100% sure because right there, I didn't see them. I didn't see their faces. They also asked the sister, Perla Martinez. And ultimately what she said through testimony is, and you'll hear her testimony in this case, she did have some video calls, but the camera moved around and she didn't really know who she was looking at or who was who. She does remember seeing Aiden specifically, but that's all she remembers. So again, the police are trying to develop, at any point, has anyone seen Orrin and Orson? I'm going to go through the timeline, a specific timeline of the move to California City. September 11th, that's when they got the keys from the realtor, Robert Dees. September 15th, that's when the pest control individual, first name Joseph, went to the house. September 17th, 2020, they went out to Cal City. And then I highlighted this date because it's going to become important in this case. September 18th, 2020, that's the day that Wanda West went out to Cal City. to watch the boys so that Trezell and Jacqueline could move. Well, when she went out to California City to watch the boys, that did not include Orrin and Orson. That was only Adrian, Aiden, Devin, and Damien. September 18th, that's when Jacqueline and Trezell drive from California City to Bakersfield to pick up a U-Haul. Wanda West stays with the 4 boys. Again, Adrian, Aiden, Devin, and Damien. She had no sight of Orrin and Orson. She believed that they were at the grandmother's, Maria Martinez, in Bakersfield. And again, Maria Martinez will testify she did not watch Orrin and Orson. September 18th, they return. This is the U-Haul that they return in. The van itself stays in Bakersfield. Jacqueline and Trezell return to California City in this van. You'll hear testimony that it's a 2-seater. There is no space for children. There is no space for Orrin and Orson. There will be cell phone footage in this case, kind of give a sense of the trips back and forth. Because it becomes important, their trips back and forth, because Wanda West helps them unload the vehicle, the U-Haul, helps them watch the kids, takes Trezell to McDonald's, so does these things, and at no point does she see Orrin and Orson over the weekend of the 18th to the 20th. During that weekend, Trezell and Jacqueline are back and forth to Bakersfield in the U-Haul, picking up items. And again, Wanda West believes that Orrin and Orson are at Maria Martinez. There's going to be a lot of video in this case, but listen to the video specific to what Jacqueline says about where Orrin and Orson are when they're moving. She says that Orrin and Orson are with her when they're moving. This is just showing some more back and forth between Bakersfield and California City. Ultimately, again, September 19th and 20th, Wanda and the 4 boys helped Trezell unload the U-Haul. Again, no sight of Orrin or Orson. On September 20th, Trezell and Wanda returned the U-Haul in California City. On September 20th, again, Trezell and Wanda come back to the house. Jacqueline, Trezell, Wanda, the 4 boys are all there. They hang out for a while. At no point is Orrin and Orson present. On that same day, Trezell and Wanda drive back to the apartments on Lotus Lane. Once they get there, Trezell gets in the van, drives out, gets on the freeway, and goes home. Again, at no point during this time are Orrin and Orson seen. You'll see through the evidence in this case that lines up directly with what Adrian said, the timeline, when Orrin and Orson went missing. July 25th, 2020, this is a photo of Orrin West. This is the last known photo ever taken of Orrin. It's recovered from the cell phones that were seized in this case. This is the last known photo of Orson, taken in the apartment at Lotus Lane, July 25th, 2020. Now, during one of the interviews, and it'll be played for you here, Jacqueline West talks about how she talked to her kids about Orrin and Orson. She said, "I told them, pretend they're not here. Just act like they don't live here. Just go do your work." She talked about what she did with Orrin and Orson. "I always keep them separated. I keep them separated. I focus mainly on schooling while they're playing. They don't really play together. But they have played together. I just don't know." But that's essentially what happened to Orrin and Orson. They were in that home, but they were kept separate. And then ultimately, sometime in September, they were killed and have not been seen since then. I've spoke about it, there'll be a lot of surveillance footage we look at. There will be a lot of interviews that we look at. Interviews of Jacqueline, interviews of Trezell. A lot of details that we will be going over. Things that they said, things that changed. And ultimately, the answer to the question of where are the boys will be answered, it's that they're dead. And at the end of the case, I will ask you to return a verdict of guilty beyond a reasonable doubt as to Trezell and Jacqueline for the murders of Orrin and Orson West. Thank you.